Hi. If you're watching this, you're probably interested in minimal techno, you're probably interested in the minimal house scene. You've maybe attended some events, maybe you went to Sunwave in Romania, or maybe you've been to Mutec in Montreal. Whatever is your place of choice, minimal and electronic music in that direction is something that for the people that love that kind of music, they often get really passionate about it. And just to make like a brief piece of history for the people that are maybe new to this, in the 90s there was the explosion of different genre, and all genre had a peak time, and it was really brief. There was trance, there was go up, psytrance, and drum and bass, hard techno, and for a little while, hard techno was extremely popular and really high energy and really taking a lot of space. A little bit like now, but much bigger, much bigger, because there was no internet and sales of vinyls were huge. I'm not sure how much they relate to now, but it was really huge. I remember some releases of some records were selling like easily 5,000 copies, which is not something you see quite often nowadays. And this kind of music was all over the place. There was a lot of events of techno, a lot of clubs, and I remember that Berlin had also this subculture, which was like the dub techno and the minimal also happening. It was kind of considered underground, but it's also really popular. And a lot of the art techno guys had an eye on minimal because they love what was happening. It was kind of the response to this like intense music. Minimal was more of stripping it down to the essential and not trying to make everything blow up. Like they were just trying to get one idea and do it properly. And the idea was also that minimal was music to be mixed, and it was heavy influenced by Detroit, early Detroit music. That was pretty stripped down as well. And so a lot of people like me were following Richie Houghton, which was certainly one of the guys that was playing it and was also known, and he was doing it really well back then. So there was a huge following, and there's a lot of people into it. It's beautiful. And the year 2000 came, and then Music in Montreal started, and all these like events gave like minimal and electronic music in that spectrum a lot of room, a lot of place, and it became a movement. And that movement lasted almost 10 years, I would say, in its golden age. And that's when I started doing it. A lot of my friends were doing house, but myself and a bunch of others, we thought that minimal was something that we really resonated with, and you know, it just felt natural to make it because it felt good. So there was a lot of opportunities, and also there was a lot of MP3 sharing. That's when net labels started, and net labels, a lot of them were doing a dub, uh, techno dub, and it was quite a movement. And for a while, that genre was all about who would have the most original ideas and the most like uh how could I say, like changing ideas, like things that would innovate, things that would make you sound different. So there was Mille Plateau and Forsync. These guys were doing a series of records and escape with Paul. And there's a super nice channel on YouTube called Dub Monitor, where the guy talked about the history of dub techno and techno in general. And he relates all the details of this in a much better way than I do. But where I'm getting with this is that the the way that music was done back then was very different than now, and it grew really fast and it became really big. to a point where I remember when the Love Parade came, Luciano, Richie, and Ricardo were playing at the Love Parade in Berlin. That I think like that was the peak, and I remember them playing super minimal stuff, and it was huge. People were loving it. Nowadays, it's completely different, and I made a post on Facebook about how I was missing those underground parties and the trippy sounds and this feeling of going in an afternoon on on a summer night or a summer afternoon, and just to get lost in music, but also discovering new ideas and sounds. And I missed that, and a lot of people resonated with that. A lot of people commented, which was really lovely to see that I'm not the only one thinking like this. And it made me think about what happened, like what's different now than then. And as a mastering engineer, as a label owner, I get exposed to a lot of music. A lot of demos come to me, and I master a lot of demos, master a lot of releases from labels. So I hear what's happening, and I'm privileged to be able to see what's happening and how some releases get really big, some are really good but not big, and also I'm following what's happening with the distributors that are picking up lots of records. Some sell, some don't, and so I was thinking like, what's happening exactly with minimal right now, and I think like one of the things that I saw was that minimal kind of died temporarily around 2008, 2009, and I remember I was in Berlin back then. Everyone moved to Berlin because nothing was happening in North America, and a lot of people from Montreal moved there to be able to tour, and I moved there late compared to a lot of them. And when I arrived, there was just no bookings anymore, and a lot of people that were playing minimal went into house or hard techno. Even techno was difficult at that time. And what happened and what killed and what was really rough on the scene was the lack of variety. And at some point, instead of trying to innovate, there was a lot of people that were just trying to copy what was working because distributor wanted that kind of music that was going to sell, which they're making a business, and that's how business is made, is have to sell. But the spirit of innovation was lost, and stuff that was innovating was discarded or overlooked or simply not seen as something that would sell enough. And clubs were booking a lot of minimal stuff, and eventually people wanted house. It was Wolf and Lamb becoming really big, and they set the trend that house was the next big thing, and everyone started playing house, like almost like in a matter of month. Like the scene pivoted like pretty abruptly, and I remember I was extremely depressed. It was a time where I had a burnout and I was lost completely because I didn't want it to jump off the wagon. It was important for me to follow what I loved, and it was crucial for me to be able to continue doing what I was doing. And um, I remember having my son, and I stopped touring, and I located in Montreal and got a job, and was like, I'll do music whenever I can, and continue doing my things. And around 2012 or 13, I discovered the what was happening in Romania. I had contact with Radu and Petre and Spirescu in Berlin, and we had like exchange. We love each other's music. It was lovely. And these guys had in Romania, they had like something going on. Something was happening, and it was because of Ricardo, who played there and kind of educated the crowd. The Romanians really fell in love with minimal because of Ricardo, and there was like a parallel scene to the minimal, which was the Romanian scene, and not many people was aware of it, and it kind of grew and grew and grew, and uh, it's exciting to say that it became like it's rare that a country develop its own sound, and the Romanians have done that in a brilliant way. And I would say that in the last few years, the releases I got, the music I got for mastering, started to sound a little bit all over the place. But in terms of like what was selling was always the same kind of format, same kind of template, same kind of sound. And a lot of people were jumping in because like, oh, I think I figured out how it's made, and there's all these tutorials that explain how to do it. And what can kill a genre is when people make music because it's easy. Uh, I have nothing against tutorials. I make tutorials myself, and I think they're important for educating. But tutorials are a base. They're a place to start, and after that, you develop. And in some blog posts that I've done recently, I was explaining that good ideas will be more important than quality production. And I know a lot of people will react to that and disagree, but honestly, some of the songs that I love in the last 40 years, sometimes they don't really have great production, but they have good ideas. And good ideas is what sink in your mind. Good production is sort of like what makes a good impression, but a good idea is what you remember. I don't remember tracks for a good kick. I maybe a few, but if that's the best part of a song is the kick or the production, it shows how hollow and empty that track is. And a lot of people focus on mixing and production, while this can be seen as cosmetics over something ugly. And I really want to encourage you today to consider focusing on ideas. We need you to make music with good ideas. We need you to dig to, some DJs are renowned because they dig out some records, but we need production and producers that dig for ideas. And that is something that you can do with finding samples, digging for old music that you recycle, using techniques. Try to make some plugins uh, go beyond what they're supposed to be made for, and try to pull out some new sounds of that. If you take it easy, and I sometimes take it easy as well. I think it's like it feels good to make music that makes you feel good. But it's not because you finish a song that you really have to release it. And it's not because you made a song that sounds the same as something that is selling that you should also sell it. I think that if you make music that is different, but still has some points of the music that is in demand right now, you've got something that we want to hear as a public, as someone that needs music. And I think, like at some point, there's been way too much attention put into sounding good. And a lot of people are thinking that labels and, you know, the average listener are expecting them to be really good at mixing and really good at mastering. But the reality is that we want music to sound good, but it's not the priority. We want music that will be with us during the day. I want to wake up and listen to music in the background or when I go jogging, and I want that music to stay with me. And honestly, all I want if you are going to mix is to make sure that it's not harsh, and and that everything is flowing, and that it's catchy, fun, carries an emotion, carries an idea that I will want to listen over and over. And that's it. That's it. That's all we need. No one expects you to perfect something. And honestly, perfection sometimes is quite boring and clinical. We don't need that. I don't. And I think a lot of people out there are right now a little bit lost, and there's a lot of attention on other genre, which I think is a good thing because all the people that are making minimal because it's easy and because it's easy to get a release, well, maybe these people need to consider working a little bit harder to make music that can elevate themselves and the scene. And if you look at drum and bass right now, I'm really into it. I was into it in the 90s and then I kind of lost interest, but it never stopped, even though it was not the most popular genre. And what happened was the people that were into it were really into it and they were really trying to perfect it. And there's people like Ski Mask that made it an art. And what's happening with drum and bass right now, if you listen to releases that are coming out, like, I mean, maybe I'm lucky, but most of the music I'm hearing is just mind blowing. Like, and it's not always like top notch production, but the ideas, the content, the diversity, the just like the mood and textures are what I want in music. I want this in minimal music. I want this into minimal house. I just a little bit like bored of being like flooded with music that has been made with not the heart, but with other interests that maybe are not what I want to hear. Anyway, that was kind of a rant, I presume, and I wrote about this on my blog if you want to know more about what I'm saying. But I just want to give you inspiration and build quality references, dig deeper, and I'm organizing retreats and giving classes. So if you need more inspiration and someone to kick your ass, come to me. I'll be happy to provide some help into transforming your music. But that was not the point of this video. It's not about selling myself. It was about making minimal rich and beautiful.